Welcome to Expedition Self on OMTimes Radio with lifelong learner, entrepreneur, and creator of the worlds of Expedition Self, Sam Parrotto. Sam shares 4 decades of studying, guiding, and teaching how to go inside so we can build an incredibly powerful, dynamic, and validating relationship with the self. Expedition Self is laced with stellar, unexpected insights about what it means to be human. Listen now and ignite your self-development process with Sam Parrotto.
Well, hello, I'm Sam Parrotto, and I'm so glad you're here for my show today. We're going to be talking about friendship, and it's one of those lifelong things that we all encounter and deal with and receive wonderful gifts from, right? So I thought we'd just dive right in with a little drama from Shel Silverstein. So here we go. How many slams in an old screen door? Depends how loud you shut it. How many slices in a bread? Depends how thin you cut it. How much good inside a day? Depends how good you live 'em. How much love inside a friend? Depends how much you give 'em. And that's what we're going to be exploring today, is not only the love we give to friendships, but also all the dynamics and the ways that these friendships work in our lives. So let me begin by owning up that friendship has been a really bumpy road for me. And when I think about friends I didn't treat well, and when I ponder the many misunderstandings and absent-minded exits, at this stage in my life, it makes my heart hurt. So I suppose that's why I wanted to do a show about this subject. It's taken me a long time to really understand how to be a good friend and how to keep my expectations in my own backyard and how to create a level of communication that supports the inevitable change that happens, over a lifetime. I'm wondering if others have walked along this fluctuating path with your friendships too. So our phone number where you can call in today, because I'm hoping you'll share some of your friendship stories, is 202-570-7057. It seems like such an important aspect of life. It's worthwhile to pause and ponder your history of those you befriended along the way and how you see them now. And for those of you who have always had it work, I hope you will call in particularly and share some of the lessons you've learned along the way. So in today's show, I'm going to offer some ways to bring more consciousness to your friendships. But I want to say right out of the box that my take on friendship is definitely not all encompassing. I have tons still to learn and a lot to make sense of. And I think this subject, though, offers so much insight about going inside of ourselves. And that's why I wanted to make sure we talked about it here. So with that said, having a friend, one you consider a forever bestie or a solid, always count onable one, it makes life more and more and more. They reflect our hidden, unconscious, deepest selves. They help us feel like we're not alone on this journey that we're scaling. They help us sort out what's what when we lose perspective. And they can make the difference in whether life feels full or life doesn't, because we need people around us to share in it all. And a lot of times family just can't fill this place for us, or it fills a different place. So friendship is a standalone. This idea that what goes on inside of us is what goes on outside, I believe it really holds true in terms of how we conduct ourselves and engage in and manage our friendships. What we want from a friend is largely based on how we relate to our inner selves as a friend. And the level of intimacy we share within ourselves is the same level of intimacy we can bring to a relationship. So we're going to talk a ton more about this inner world, outer experience thing as we go through the hour. But I want to take a moment and just talk about this word intimacy, because I use it all the time. And what I mean by it is it's the level of closeness, the up upfront insight and understanding and embracing and tolerance of details between one something and another. And so the degree to which we don't actually like to be close to something, it's the degree that we're not intimate. So there's this closeness itself, the doing of it, and then there's the feeling we associate with actually being close. That's why intimacy is such a big concept, because it has a lot to do with this minute, very with something that we can get, and then it has to do with how we actually feel as we're going through that. So when you think of you with you, there's a level of intimacy you have with the various aspects of you, the inner child parts. I did a show on that. Or your adventurous self, or your introverted self. And that probably has a lot to do with how your friendships go and what you're drawn to in those friendships. Okay, I'm going to take a breath here. So, when I started to prepare for this show, I found myself just wanting to sit down and tell the story of each of my friendships. The confusion, the difficulty, the fun, the joy, and the learning. And so that's actually what I'm hoping you'll do during the show today. Sit down while you're there, wherever you are right now, write a list of all the friends that come to mind. Allow their faces or their names to pop right there. Put them on the page. These are the stories that your psyche will be opening up today while I talk over here. And hopefully you may even want to share one by calling in. So let's start with the question of why you choose the friends that you choose. Which leads me to the next question, which is, do you even think you choose them? Or do you think they just happen upon into your life? So if we take the case that no friend just happens to stop by and come and hang out in your life by accident, then we would conclude that you drew them to you, or that they drew you to them because there was something to experience together, or you wouldn't be together. So all of those people, the ones that showed up on your list or that are popping into your mind, they showed up to provide you with something that you needed at the time to learn or understand or to be supported in. So why do we want to be friends with someone? What are we going to get out of it? Because we're always getting something out of it for ourselves. Whether we're the bigger giver or the bigger receiver. I think this is a really important piece because we live in a society that doesn't want anybody to be selfish. But in actuality, everybody's getting something out of everything, or we generally don't do it. Perhaps we get to feel important or valued or needed. But whatever you provide for them, you're getting something, because no relationship is truly one-sided. So as an aside, is this an idea that you've tried on before, that no relationship is truly one-sided? Because if not, I think it's worth contemplating inside of this friendship conversation, because it can help you shift your perspective about the dynamics and the outcomes of your past friendships that didn't go the way you might have liked. So at the very core of a great friendship, we find companionship, connection, understanding, appreciation, insight, love, and learning. And in the best friendships, we feel seen and we find true camaraderie and a shared understanding of our journey. But what also comes with friendship is sometimes confusion and inconsideration, jealousy and hurt feelings, and even maybe betrayal, right? Something we expected didn't go the way we expected. So friendships are supposed to bring everything, not just the good stuff. Or I could say, what this friend who shows up brings for you should include all the parts of relationship we need to learn about and grow through. So can you think of friendships when they brought stuff you didn't like or want? And how did you see the value from that or the learning that you had. Because in order to see through the notions you've already concluded about your friendships, you're going to want to steer clear of making that other person wrong for how the relationship went. And we want to avoid judging them for who they are or what they did, and instead appreciate that they were no accident and that we might see a lot about how we show up in relationship if we take a second look. So I know I'm kind of talking about the relationships that didn't go well, but I'll get to some more about the ones that do and how to nurture them and treasure them as well. So do you remember that scene in Pretty Women when Julia Roberts, she gives her roommate Kit the money to get off the streets and go to hairstyling school? She said something like, because you've got real potential. I'm trying to be Julia Roberts in this moment. And Kit replies, really? I don't know. It always made me think that this is what a friendship really can be. When you really care about the well-being of someone, you're willing to share and you see what's possible for them. It makes me think of this quote that I found about what a soul sister is that they are someone who listens and fully understands without judgment or solution, knows the right thing to say, shares belongings or desserts, like hot fudge sundaes, and regularly reminds their friend of their beauty. So if we take the case that it's not a coincidence about who we become friends with, and we look at the friendships that didn't go the way we planned through the lens of not making them wrong or judging them for how it went, then we have an opportunity to really look at what draws us towards a person. And we get to celebrate friendship as a whole rather than only those relationships that gave us the best of what friendship has to offer. So when I say, why did you become friends? Perhaps you'd say like the most obvious reason is you have common interests or a shared similar experience. You like to dance. Bum, 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 bum. They like to dance. You like to fish. They like to fish. You're working on the same fundraising project together, or you're hanging out in the same hiking club. Pure companionship absolutely feeds the soul. And it goes right to the very center of what it means to be human. That place where we are alone, passing through this lifetime on a quest that is solely unique to us, needing company, to lighten the load and illuminate the path. So quite simply, friends make us less lonely. And they validate that our presence matters in some way. I have a short excerpt from a Maya Angelou poem called Alone. And I think it says it all. Lying, thinking last night, how to find my soul a home where water is not thirsty and bread loaf is not stone. I came up with one thing, and I don't believe I'm wrong, that nobody can make it out here alone. So this is why I suggest that we were drawn together for a reason, because liking the same activity, it can't possibly attest to this real magic that's afoot when we make a friend and we stop being alone in that moment. Another reason I notice we become friends is because someone offers kindness or empathy or understanding. And when that happens, there's this recognition of love and attention and feeling wanted. These needs, they run wide and wild beneath everything we are. Because we really do need to belong. We need to feel embraced and noticed and enjoyed. We need someone to say, I see you and you have value. And when we form a friendship, there's all this possibility that happens. I think one of the most magical things that's happened to me along these lines are the times when someone saw me as a friend, but I missed it. When they realized that I was someone they wanted to know while I was sitting with my head in the sand, missing the entire thing, being unconscious about it. I felt so chosen. I'm kind of wondering, is that an experience you've had also, or have you been someone who chose someone else whose head was in the sand? My oldest friend did this for me. We moved into a trailer park, and one day she pulled up in her little golf cart and asked me if I wanted to go for a ride because I was new to the neighborhood. I was so shocked. I think my face probably was written all over it. Lickety split. I definitely accepted her offer. Dee Dee, my friend, she was like that, so open-hearted. So as much as I talk about our needs, we're also all built a bit differently. So for me, the I don't need anybody way of being, it's permeated a lot of my life. So what I bring to friendships begins with me being kind of detached or aloof. So when someone has cut through that over the years like Dee Dee did, it's felt rather miraculous, or it's got that magic miracle thing going on. So I'd like you to think about this question. What is your basic orientation to friendship? How does this look in your life? How much do you want people around, and how defended are you? How hard do you make them work to be your friend? So I'd like you to think about that. And this is a great time after break to call in at 202-570-7057. And I'd love to hear about your friends, how that's gone, and what you think your orientation to friendship is all about, how defended you are, and how much work goes into it.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
OMTimes magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organisation, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Connect at omtimes.com. OMTimes, creating a more conscious lifestyle.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
Coping-19, brought to you by CDC and the Ad Council.
If you're feeling increasingly lonely right now, you're not alone. It's totally normal. Even though we may not be able to get together in person, connecting virtually with friends and family still gives you a chance to interact with people and may help raise your spirits. Join a virtual book club, set up group text chats, or online video coffee breaks with coworkers.
Find more self-care and coping tips at coping-19.org.
Well, I'm Sam Parrotto, and you're listening to Expedition Self. I'm so glad you're here. And today we're talking about friendship. And before we went on to the break, I actually posed this idea about what is your basic orientation to friendship, and how does it actually play out in your life? So I asked if somebody might call in and give us some insight about their idea about friendship. So Susie from Philly, would you like to come on and give us your viewpoint about this?
Sure.
Share your story.
Sure. Hi, Sam.
Thanks for calling.
Of course. For me, I think as I look back, I'm in my late 50s for a few more minutes. And I think as I look back on my life, I think as a younger person, I had my friends to fill my needs. But I don't think I was clear about that. And I think as I've matured, and especially now, I realize my friends are really more mirrors back to me of who I'm being and who I want to be. And so I think I now, you asked about my orientation toward friends, I think I feel connections with people where I feel like I'm going to grow alongside them. I mean, that to me is the best feeling in the world, is to share to share that experience with someone. And I think it has to do with intimacy. And you mentioned about being defended. I don't know. Being defended is sort of doesn't really do much for intimacy. So for me, it's about creating a safe space with someone and trying to feel brave and put myself out there and learn about myself as my friend learns about him or herself together as a unit. And it's like a 1 + 1 = 10, doesn't equal 2.
Mm-hmm. The link that you make between the idea that being defended and intimacy don't work so well together, and the idea that you can look back on all your friendships and realize that by dropping that and really going for that, the idea that you can actually grow together rather than try to keep things in the same mode. It seems like you've really got your handle on friendship, right? As sounds like you've spent a lot of time in there.
Yeah, I mean, I have great friends, and I'm very fortunate, and I have friends who I think we're of like mind as far as what matters to us and what we want out of our lives, and so I think that just makes all the difference is getting that kind of a connection with someone, and I think that there's just a chemistry that happens, and so it's just very different than my approach, many years ago, and I think it wasn't going to happen until I was going to be undefended. It just
meant you were going to get into more relationship with yourself. When you say I have great friends, it means you have learned how to be a great friend to yourself.
I suppose that's true. I mean, I know it couldn't not be true. Sorry for the double negative, but it could not be true for what I'm saying. You're right.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, thank you for contributing to our conversation.
It's a great topic.
I'm sorry, finish what you were saying.
It's a great topic. I'm looking forward to listening to the rest of the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay, Sam. Thank you.
So I think, with Susie's sharing, it brings to mind just this idea that we probably can't get through life without learning some things about friendship. And this moment when we get to stop and just think about it for a little while, it validates and gives honors really all that you've expended to learn those things. So I want to go back to what I was really talking about, my basic orientation, and I was talking about being the person who was unsuspecting, and then Dee Dee showed up with her little golf cart. Remember that all these examples, you can flip them. You can be the one who's showing up with a golf cart, or you can be the one who's on the receiving end. So, all right. So I think beyond the way a friendship can diminish our sense of being alone, they're also in a position to make contact and tend to our deepest human needs. Susie actually referred to that when she was talking about her early friendships. But for most of us, we don't go into a friendship saying, will you meet my deepest needs to not feel alone and become more vulnerable and less defended? I think most of us need to see that some purpose is met, like having company or someone to play with or sharing an activity is kind of easy to connect over, for sure. But there are other purposes that'll bring us together too, like having to work together for some reason, or being thrown together in time and place, like in a college dorm situation. Here's another example, like they have something you want or access to a group of people you'd like to be a part of. So what has you place value on a friendship? And what purpose do you believe they serve for you? And what causes you to invest yourself? I feel like we have expectations and needs in friendship. And a lot of times, this is what becomes challenging to navigate. And I'm going to give you some examples. I want someone to just listen to me and not give me a hard time if they don't agree, and certainly not try to fix it. I want someone to be excited about the things I'm excited about, even if they're not excited. I want someone who really gets me and understands what makes me tick. so that I can feel really safe with them. Or I want someone who complains about the same things I do. I need someone who shares my values. So I have to say here that what also happens is you can go into a friendship feeling like you have no needs or no expectations. I think this creates difficulty too, right? Because needs are the basis of friendship. They're the basis of our connection. We are human, and we can't forget our humanness when we're just inside of a relationship, because our humanness is always there and it comes first, and it's always at work, even if we think we're just participating in something that's a shared experience or that we have a common purpose. So our capacity plays a significant role in working through these expectations. So this is a suitable place to really dive into what goes on inside of you. How you treat yourself will be how you want to be treated and how you expect to be treated. And the pendulum here doesn't just swing towards the side of relationship that's loving and positive and uplifting, right? Wherever you push yourself in harsh ways, you'll find yourself reacting to the same in them, or reacting in the same way to their common parallel spots. Wherever you're intolerant of aspects of yourself, they'll likely be the same places you're intolerant to those same aspects in them. And wherever you can't really value and love yourself, this is the same thing that's going to happen in relationship. So you see, to be an awesome compadre, it means we have to be in a state of consistent development so that we can continue to have more and more to share of ourselves. And as a result, we're actually building more and more capacity and more honesty and more recognition of our deeper needs that we're trying to meet, and more acknowledgement of what they give up or offer or sacrifice to meet our needs. So this is a really important thing, right? That recognizing that others are stretching on our behalf. You know, one of the most obvious expectations that we bring to this dynamic has to do with your expectation of the level of intimacy that you will actually share or don't want to share. So we could conclude that the more intimate you are with yourself, then you'll likely want that level of intimacy with someone else. And the more intimacy translates to more capacity to step into and create meaningful friendships. I don't think I could have planned that call any better, because Susie pretty much shared her life, like her process, through friendship. And this is exactly the point that I wanted to make here. All right, so this is a good time if you're on the fence about a story in your life, a friendship, something that you really want to share or you just want to talk about that will make our conversation richer and fuller for everyone. I'm going to give you the number one more time, 202-570-7057. So I find it really interesting to watch my son form friendships. You know, what he'll talk about, what he'll share, how he skirts difficult interactions that don't go the way he wants them to go, you know, because he's afraid in some way or another that he might disrupt the friendship. You know, how deeply he'll share his own insecurities, his fears, his misgivings, you know, what's okay for him and what isn't. And, you know, it's fascinating because there's one friend who doesn't always treat him well, and it's not because he doesn't care about him, right? He knows that they're friends. It's this capacity thing I'm discussing. And my son, because of it, gets to practice speaking on his own behalf, which of course builds his skills in life. So the more he does that, what's been like a surprise, or maybe like how it works, the friend actually opens up. And the more he has to get stronger and find words to reflect what's happening inside of him and be in the dialogue with that friend, try to make sure that they stay in understanding and connection, the more he grows. So you see, speaking in a way that's honoring inside of a friendship to challenge what doesn't work or what doesn't serve you both, this is a totally essential element of managing the change and evolution that we're all going to experience as we grow and age, and life takes its left turns and its right turns and goes over the hills and into the valleys. Without the ability to speak about your capacity and how your friends plays out, it's less likely to stand the test of time. So maybe you can think about that in some of the friendships you've had, because I do feel like there's something healing about being able to go back and look over our lifetime, to gaze across the horizon that we've already walked through. It's that, to make more understanding of things, to put the pieces together and say, where was I when that was actually happening? How come that went the way that it did? And I feel like when you go inside, you're going to reflect and review your lifetime just thousands of times, so that you keep putting the pieces together and getting more peace, P-E-A-C-E, and you find yourself in a place that has more freedom to express your full self in the here and now, rather than get smaller and smaller and smaller, because what you have left behind has gone untouched and unexplored. So another capacity piece has to do with being giving and how we care and how we receive. So this capacity to receive, in friendship, we find a very rich playground to learn about our vulnerability, which is kind of what we've been talking about. And receiving is an incredibly vulnerable experience, because we're allowing someone to contribute to us. We don't really have the upper hand in receiving. We're on the receiving end, right? We have to catch something. We have to allow it. We have to open to it. And we're faced, because of that, with feeling potentially dependent, or like we can owe something, or wondering what we've done to deserve it. Receiving is a huge, huge, huge growth space, and really understanding how you relate to that can be really important when you're trying to create more abundance in your life, or you're trying to cause things to move in a direction that is more beneficial to you, because all of that has to do with receiving. And then, of course, there's this idea of being responsible for what we receive, which means that we just don't take without making sure that there's some balance, or something equal and reciprocal, right? Some fairness. I've heard people say things like, hey, they want to give it, I'll take it. But inside of really building conscious friendships and really taking them to the next level, even when the candy store is open and there's no charge on the candy, at least it appears, it's really important for us to think about, how am I actually being responsible here? Because this balance of giving and receiving, it's a huge study area in friendships, and it can help us see where we take or give too much or too little. And it can lead us to think about it in terms of, why do we give too much or too little? And that's where we get to see what's really going on inside, what's really driving us. So have you seen this dynamic in your friendships? And do you pay attention to it? Because I think it shows up in time and money and gift giving, how you listen and pay attention. There's lots to learn here. And it can fold into learning about how we manage, like, our dominance, right? Our willfulness and our passivity, or our withholding. All right, I hope you're staying with me. You've got your friends in your mind. You're taking each of these ideas and thinking about how this actually plays out for you, or has played out in life. So power dynamics definitely play out in friendship. And this isn't a bad thing, because we're able to understand where we need to control or manage, and where we don't care or let things just roll off of our shoulders. I think most of us shy away from thinking about power dynamics in relationship, but they're actually everywhere. And they're important, not because we want to have power over someone necessarily, but, we're always trying to find ways to have power in our own lives. And wherever we haven't tilled the soil within ourselves, this is going to be one of the most important things we'll learn through friendship. Because in a friendship, they're going to demonstrate and act out and bring forward all of those parts of ourselves that are in the blind spots or that we haven't yet learned how to have a relationship or to be conscious of. So when I was 11 or 12, I used to climb down my desert mountain and make my way down to the river to spend the afternoon in the water. And I generally did it by myself. But one day I met this young girl who vacationed there during the summer, and we began to meet every afternoon and play Queen of the Dock, and float down to the cliffs and jump off of them. And soon we'd get burritos at the little stand next to the docks. And I felt like I had made a really special friend. Later, though, she actually moved to Parker, where I grew up. And although we were still friends, it wasn't a secluded, special shared time together because there were lots of others to include. So over the years, we remained friends, somewhat close, until something happened and something changed. So in this moment, I'm going to stop right there. There's going to be a cliffhanger. And when I come back, I'll talk a little bit about what changed. And if you would like to share a story, it's a great time when we return from break.
The best of holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. ascendinghearts.com.
Imagine yourself being transported to India, to the banks of the Ganga and an ashram in Rishikesh. Visualize that you are welcome to satsang with an American sannyasi who shares the wisdom of her guru. Your visualization has manifested. Join Sattvi Bhagawati Saraswati for inspiration and transformation every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
If I could be you,
and you could be me,
for just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Well, welcome back. I'm Sam Parrotto, and you are listening to Expedition Self as we dive into this amazing state that we get to benefit from called friendship. So before break, I was telling you a little bit about this friendship that I had made when I was going down to the river to swim every afternoon, and how when this friend of mine moved to Parker, that our friendship over the years, even though it continued, it eventually got to a place where I found myself frustrated. And I found myself frustrated because I would have the experience that she kept trying to tell me what to do or how to think. And it felt, I felt like put down and condescended, like she was being superior. And, at the time it was like, oh, I don't like this. I don't want to be a friend anymore. And I did not have the skills to talk through how much I didn't like it and how much what it felt like when I was with her. And I would call this one of my friend fails because, it's very possible that if I had had the capacity to communicate, talk about what was going on for me, that she would have acknowledged my needs and actually responded. I have a number of these. I don't know whether all of you do, but they have produced amazing learning for me, and I do have feelings about it. It's what I mentioned when I said sometimes my heart hurts. And it doesn't mean I can't go back to all of these and actually these people and talk to them and share and open up. The bottom line is friendship is that while it's created to give you and the other person something you need, It's a huge territory for learning about yourself and for learning about love and power and intimacy and how your needs play out and helping you develop capacity. I wrote this as a part of a blog post years ago, and I think it fits here. It was in response to a conversation about friendship. I am grateful when others give me a chance to make mistakes in relationship and try to understand that it has nothing to do with my feeling for them, but rather the lack of feeling or wholeness I have within me. See, the truth is, there was enough missing inside of my sense of being wanted and loved and valued that no one could be taken care of by me at the time. It would be years later when I would finally be able to bring any kind of dependable commitment to a friendship because I was untrustworthy with others' hearts and I was constantly filling this void within. Friendship just couldn't fill it. It was going to have to be me. So this idea of really focusing on how is this friendship a reflection of what I have to learn? How is this friendship an opportunity to go inside and connect with parts of myself that are getting triggered here? That is really what conscious friendship to me is all about. So how do you treasure a friend? You know, we have a deep desire to understand them when we treasure them, to ask questions and exploration of who they really are. And we want to know them at deeper and deeper levels to gain understanding. We're willing to invest time and energy, and we try to get out of our own way and truly understand what they need because they define it, not us. And we want to keep looking at our own capacity, our ownership in how things go, and keeping that flashlight on ourselves so we're bringing the vulnerable truth, the desire to learn about ourselves into those same interactions. So I've got some practical tips for you to work with. Now, the first one is getting in someone else's world. When we get in someone else's world, we do not make it about us. We don't tie it back to what we think is relevant. We don't compare it to us. We literally think about where have they come from? What do I understand about them? How do I relate to their heart? What's going on in their head? What's happening in their lifetime? What are the challenges that they run into? What are the fears that they are uniquely dealing with? And then I speak into that. So that I give them the stage, I give them that center place to feel like I am being with them. I'm not being with me to be with them. And when we can get in someone else's world in a friendship, or when we really stop the action in our own heads, which is going on all the time, when I can do that, then what I'm bringing is this attention and this listening and the quality of you matter to me and I am willing to leave my own domain to try and understand you. Now, when that happens, sometimes I can't pull it off, but that's okay because I can say that, I can't quite understand what you're dealing with here. I haven't lived that part of life yet, or I don't know how this connects with that. But you see, those questions, they just help the other person have an opportunity to get in touch with themselves as you get in touch with them. I cannot stress how important getting in someone else's world is in friendships and all relationships and every place that you're trying to get along in the world and you encounter another person. Another one, okay, so that was getting in someone else's world. The next one is this, what I call ping pong. And that's like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. Oh, me too. I'm so tired too. Or I can't even believe how hard the drive was home yesterday. Oh, I know. I couldn't believe all the traffic I ran into too. I think it's kind of like the beginning of relating when we do that ping pong thing. But what happens is whoever really gets paid attention to in there. Because with each ping that then becomes a pong, you're really just talking about you, hoping they talk about you, or they're talking about them, hoping you talk about them. So when we're really trying to treasure friendship, I think becoming conscious of the ways that we're unconscious in the sharing of everyday life, the mundane stuff, the kind of back and forth thing that we do, and make a decision, like put intention into really listening, or the reverse, which can be a little harder, is to say, could you really give me the space right now? And of course, where that's going to take us is thinking about how we use space, how we fill that space, and what we fill it with. And there's nothing wrong with getting more conscious about that when we're talking about friendship. So the next one is wrong making. So we want to avoid wrong making in our friendships. Now, I think we all know that wrong making is just part of our judgmental mind. It's the way that the mind keeps trying to stay in control of everything. But I think a lot of times what happens in friendships is that we do the wrong making behind the scenes, and then we try to conduct conversation or engage in the friendship without telling them that that's what's going on. And so when we do that, then we don't take ourselves on about it. Because in relationship, in intimacy, with the idea of understanding somebody, wrong making means that you just aren't intimate enough with it. It means that it's a place in yourself that you've likely made wrong already, or you have a rule about, or you've got some set of ideas about how it should go, or what's good, or what's right. But if we're going to be in this kind of deep relationship and friendship, that wrong making is just like putting up a fence, or locking ourselves inside of a castle. Okay, that's 3. I'm going to do the 4th one. 4th one is remove your projections from them. Now, this is something that has a lot to do with capacity and how much you've gotten in touch with yourself to even recognize that you're projecting your thoughts and feelings on someone else. So it's possible that this isn't an area that you've ever thought about or tried on. But basically what happens is, you know how the eye, the optical nerve, reverses, like you see things upside down, but by the time they get to your brain, they're right side up? Well, I think that's exactly how projections work. So that projections are like, I see it inside myself, and that's how I think about it. So then that's how I see them. And a lot of times it even has us not listen as fully and completely as we could, because we're not recognizing that the projection has actually happened. So the more we can remove these projections from our conversation or from the way we relate to them and actually bring them into conversation. So you can say, hey, this is what I'm thinking you're saying, or this is what I'm imagining you're trying to describe to me. Am I getting it, or am I just placing what I know and what I've been on your experience? So the more we can bring that into the space in a friendship, I think the more that person feels really treasured. And of course, the more we can ask for it for ourselves. Because remember, we want both sides of a friendship to be treasured. We want both sides to flourish. Next one, owning your needs fully and giving them freedom, that person, the freedom not to meet them. And then also talking about them. I think a lot of us live with a misconception that relationships are supposed to meet our needs, and that if they don't meet our needs, then some way or another we're unhappy. When really in relationship, what we're supposed to do is talk about our needs, bring our needs to the conversation, and see what's possible with them, but always be responsible for meeting our own. And the talking about them is being responsible. So this idea that you can let your friend off the hook from meeting your needs. Well, if you go back through your friendships and the ones that maybe didn't work out so well, you might find that that was one of the things that was really at play. That some way or another you expected them to come through, or you expected them to know what you needed, or you expected them to say the right thing. That was that piece of that poem I wasn't sure I was quite down with, is that they say the right thing. That's a nice to have, right? So, okay, next one is this balancing the give and take and talking about it. Isn't that so hard in a friendship to actually say, hey, I think I've given more than you have? Or, well, I think I'm actually taking more than you really are giving. And this can get very picky if you don't watch it, because it can get into like pointing out examples where you want the other person to look at what they're doing. That's not what I mean by this. I mean actually that you bring it. How am I giving? What am I taking? How does that go? How does that work for you? You know, does it actually matter? Is it important to you? And then I got two more. One is that talking about the gifts of the relationship often and acknowledging their contribution to you. You know, this idea that we don't have to tell people that they matter to us or what happened that really felt important or that made our heart feel whole and big. Well, I don't buy it. I think that in a friendship, when we're really treasuring that friendship, we share often and we share aplenty. And that acknowledgement is what really provides the foundation for the difficult things when you want to talk about them. Because there's never a question, hey, you matter to me. Hey, you're important to me. I really, really care what's going on with you. And by making sure we acknowledge and we don't take for granted what someone's providing, we really create this amazing, amazing space to create friendship from. And of course, the last thing is to actually check in with the other person and say, how's it going? How are we doing? What do you think? Does it work? Right? We really want to make sure that we're communicating and we're in touch and we're spending the energy in there to let that person know that they matter to us and actually to make sure that we're letting ourselves know that we matter too. So I think that kind of wraps up what I hoped to share with you about friendship today. Thank you so much for participating in the conversation. I hope you will take a moment to think about the people in your life who you have called friend or still call friend and reflect upon what you have learned about yourself through the gift of knowing them. And also then think about how you might treasure them more. And on a very personal level, I want to thank my friends, all those that back me up and give me room to make mistakes. And I am made so much more because you care for me. So next week's show is going to focus on love. I hope you'll join me. And I'm going to read a poem, even though I've read a couple throughout today. They were just little ones. I'm going to read a poem called Friends for Life by Angelica Brissett. It was published in 2007 for those of you who are interested. We are friends. I've got your back and you have mine. I'll help you out anytime. To see you hurt, to see you cry, makes me weep and I want to die. If you agree to never fight, it wouldn't matter who's wrong or right. If a broken heart needs a mend, I'll be right there till the end. If your cheeks are wet from drops of tears, don't worry, let go of your fears. Hand in hand, love is sent. We'll be friends till the end. Thank you for being with me. I hope you have a beautiful, self-exploring week, and I hope you'll return to talk about love. It is probably in the top 3 favorite subjects that I love to talk about, and there's so much we can do with it. Bye-bye.